This is Business Week Armenia, ＳիվiլNeթ's weekly economic digest. Here's what's making business headlines in Armenia this week. The United States has granted the artificial intelligence startup Firebird permission to export advanced chips for a new $500 million data center in Armenia. Bloomberg first reported the news this week that Washington had approved the export of processors made by chipmaker NVIDIA for the 100-megawatt project. The data center plans to allocate 20% of its computing capacity for domestic use, while setting aside the other 80% for sale to U.S. companies, Bloomberg reported. The project's first phase is slated to come online in the second quarter of next year, according to Firebird CEO Razmik Hovagimian. In June, Firebird, which describes itself as dually based in San Francisco and Yerevan, announced a public-private partnership with the Armenian government for the project. It would be the first data center of its kind in the Caucasus region and one of the largest investments in Armenia's modern history. Aside from NVIDIA, which already runs an office and research center in Armenia, other partners include Dell Technologies, Team Group, Armenia's largest telecommunications company, and Nubar Afeyan, co-founder of the biotechnology firm Moderna. Observers say the project underscores the global ambitions of Armenia's dynamic information technology sector and highlights the growing role of high-powered diasporans like Hovagimian and Afeyan in the country's economy. The initiative also reflects the increasingly international nature of Armenia's up-and-coming IT scene, which employs tens of thousands of mostly young people in the country. For more information, you can check out our interview earlier this year with Hovagimian and Team Group's Alexander Yesayan, who joined us in our Yerevan studio to discuss the project. Armenia's state regulator has stripped the country's main power distributor of its operating license, marking the latest escalation in control over Electric Networks of Armenia, or ENA. Members of Armenia's Public Services Regulatory Commission voted 4-1 this week after 3 days of tense discussions to revoke ENA's license. The regulators cited alleged shortcomings in the company's systems for financial record-keeping, metering, and billing. The sole dissenting vote came from member Ara Neranyan, who raised concerns the move could be unconstitutional. During the hearings, lawyers representing ENA's former operator rejected the allegations as unfounded and politically motivated. It marks the latest escalation in the ongoing saga over the fate of ENA, which controls Armenia's low-voltage power grid. Efforts by the government to seize the company began in June, when law enforcement arrested the company's billionaire owner, Samvel Karapetyan, on charges of making calls for regime change. Shortly after that, lawmakers passed a bill allowing the government to seize control of ENA, while law enforcement launched raids on dozens of locations apparently connected to Karapetyan as part of a probe into his sprawling business empire. After his arrest, investigators slapped Karapetyan, a dual Russian-Armenian citizen, with additional charges of fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Karapetyan's lawyers have rejected the charges against him and called them politically motivated. Karapetyan's family has since filed a $500 million claim against Armenia in a global arbitration body, demanding compensation for what they allege is a violation of an international investment treaty. That case, which is being heard in Sweden, remains ongoing. For their part, senior Armenian officials have said they could either retain long-term control over ENA, turning it into a state-run company, or sell it to a foreign buyer. The government's moves to seize ENA have spooked the private sector, with a number of prominent business leaders and former senior officials warning it could threaten Armenia's attractiveness to foreign investors. They also point out that Armenia already faces a number of other potentially costly arbitration claims. Those suits also remain ongoing. Despite that criticism, Pashinyan has continued to insist that improving the country's business environment is a priority for this administration. And as always, please follow SivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.